Hey guys, here we go again with another amigurumi tutorial. For those who don't know what amigurumi even means, it's basically just a crochet stuffed animal or crochet doll. And today we're gonna crochet a Spinosaurus. By the way, this is part 1 of the video. It may look hard, but it really isn't that hard. It's just single crochets all over. It's all safety eyes, just sew pieces together. That's just it. Well, except for the magic circle. Here's something I forgot to do before recording this video. So, I already had put the safety eyes in, but I'll tell you how to do that, as well as I already put all the stuffing inside. But here's what you will need. Scissors, your main yarn, you will need 3 to 4 colors, depending on the sail, spikes, all that you will need for this. You will need your crochet hook, and your sewing, weaving, I don't know, tapestry needle, that you will use to sew the parts in. In a different video, I have covered how to make the magic circle. And first, what we need to start is with the magic circle. And as you see, you crochet around, and I've already done it like 4 times around. When you're trying to make a bigger circle, you crochet around like on the sides and not on the edges, you know, like from there. Because or else your project will start to warp. And if it does, and if it's really noticeable, then you're probably making a mistake there. If it's a slight warp, then you don't have to worry about it. I might repeat that same thing in the video, but I have terrible memory, so I wouldn't remember, of course. Now, if it's a big circle and it's starting to warp, like kind of, then that's perfectly okay. Like, you're still gonna get the same results. Almost. You see here, your circle is kind of starting to warp. That is okay. You need to have a stitch marker though to see how many stitches you have done. In my case being a paper clip, mostly recommended using an actual stitch marker though. But you're gonna do 13 around your magic circle that you just made. And even though it warps, it's still gonna be fine. And now you begin single crocheting as normal without worrying to single crochet like a bit behind of the edge. So, like this. Like at the edge a bit. You start. So, whenever you miss a stitch, that would warp it even more like this. Which you will do whenever you're trying to close this up. But be careful and be mindful of what type of stitches you're doing. And be careful not to do that by accident, because it may mess some things up. But anyways, you crochet around like this. So now that you're done doing this like 20 times, you know, single crocheting on the edge, what you will do is take off your stitch marker and then skip a stitch and single crochet from there. And I say this because that will cause it to make it more of a closed shape, which would then, of course, close the thing shut. Yeah, how many times I have repeated that? So you will single crochet with the closed stitch that I told you 6 times. And next, your stitch marker off again. And what you will do next is single crochet your way through and skip a stitch every now and then and occasionally in order to close the project. And don't forget to leave a little hole on top, since you might want to put the stuffing inside for the next thing. And if you're using variegated yarn, depending on the patterns, whenever you flip it, you might want to consider that. You might want to consider flipping again before closing it up. So, trying to connect 2 shapes together, especially like 2 of these, but obviously different shapes since we're making a dinosaur. You might want to leave this type of hole because number 1, you would be wasting yarn, and number 2, why? Like, it wouldn't even be visible whenever you close it up. So that's what I mean by wasting yarn. But it's optional. Like, it's your choice. I'll leave it open in case. Another magic ring, and we do the same thing as we did here, except that we will crochet, single crochet more and less, and make it more towards circle shape, just like this. See, very different from this. And next, what you need to do is grab your safety eyes, and then you'll put it on. But you'll put it on, you know, putting the washer inside in here before adding the stuffing, because that would just make it better. You stuff it in with whatever kind of stuffing you have. Now you make your magic loop again, and you single crochet in the magic loop as what I've told you to make a flat circle, and you would repeat that like 6 to 7 to 8 times. Okay, now that we're done with the magic circle, what you need to do next is single crochet the same way I told you around till it makes a reasonable shape for then you to sew onto the head. Here's a good way to begin a cylinder. So make your slip knot and chain stitch around like 19 to 20 times. You see what I'm doing here? You know, yarn over this way and like that, yarn over like that, yarn over, and you keep doing this like 20 times. Also, it's best to use your yarn in like a center pole ball because it'll be really even. Here's one way to start a cylinder. So we're gonna be making these, and instead of using a magic circle, I'm gonna show you a way how to make a cylinder and then close it up. So you're gonna begin with a slip knot, and then you'll begin chain stitching, and you're gonna chain stitch about 19 to 20 times. You know, yarn over like that, yarn over like that. I've shown you in other videos, especially the first ever tutorial on how to do a chain stitch when I was doing the dragon. But yeah, you're gonna do this 19 to 20 times, I say again. You single crochet around the chain stitch to work, and you see it's kind of forming a cylinder. And this is my 6th round already. I'm on my 6th round and I'm about to do my 7th. And you're gonna do this about, so now to close it, we skip a stitch, just like what we usually do. And then skip a stitch again. And you keep skipping stitches and keep single crocheting until your project is fully shut. Remember to skip a stitch, not skip like a ton of stitches, because or else it may not result in like the best way possible. It might still result in some holes, which is why the magic circle exists, but here's an alternative way to do it. Now that it's closed, what we need to do is grab your scissors and then cut like a small portion of it, and I'll explain why, rather than a big portion. And then we tie it, and then it won't come out. Next, as always, yeah, I'm gonna keep saying as always because on my other tutorials, which you may or may not have watched, I repeat the same processes to make the onigiri you stuff it in, as well as the other 4 that you've created. Yeah, you will need 4 of these legs, obviously. And then what you will need to grab is a tapestry needle. This is where I explain why you cut the tail off some yarn. So let's just say you have a tail of really big yarn here as an example, and you use this, tie it on your weaving needle or tapestry needle, and then you start sewing. It is a good way to save yarn, but you gotta know that the yarn that you're using, chenille yarn, which is most common in amigurumi, is really expensive, and it is just best in general to use like this type of yarn, either thin yarn that you wouldn't really use or just regular old yarn, you know, worsted or acrylic. So I said worsted, not worst. I got that confused whenever I first started learning yarn. So what you need to do is, since it's connected to the other legs that I've already sewed, you connect it like this, but then as you see, I go at the top right here, put it in here, and then put it in there. And what this does is that it creates, is that instead of making it stand like this by just sewing it directly, it makes it stand in a specific shape like that. So it would stand more neatly rather than, you know, like a creeper in Minecraft. Pretty self-explanatory. I know my hand's in the way. So whenever you're at the belly, you do that. And then you sew normally whenever you are like almost like the back right here. Yeah, it's kind of difficult to show. Anyways, you keep sewing. Here is how you sew with a regular yarn, and another way to sew it in case if it wasn't clear. So you start with this. You put it not here, but here. You find a stitch where it aligns perfect whenever it's standing like that, you know, like that. There, now I explained it. And put it like that. And then to the desired position, you find one of the stitches, take that out, and you see, it's working. So you do that again, but only whenever it's facing to the belly, as you see here. But as you go more to the left, or more to where it's the back, you lower, you go down. So we started here, and now we're like here. And we will repeat the same process again. Now that we're more at the back now we can crochet from, like, I meant to say sew, from here rather than here. And as normal, you just stitch it up to, like that, to your desired, then you stitch this to your desired stitch. There, I said it. As you see here, it really isn't visible. It's invisible. What I was saying is that it really isn't visible. So now that you returned here, you go back to stitching to where it's more up. And with the process I showed you earlier. Ta-da! And then you stitch it again. And you do that. And you stick your needle in here to a random thread. And then from there you cut it. If you have excess string, you save it for later, especially whenever you're sewing the head and other parts on. Anyways, that's the arms. That's everything. Not everything, but just the arms and the legs and the body.